Welcome everybody to another developer cast here on the Game Wisdom channel. As always, I am Josh Bycer and we got another great one for you tonight. Our guest is a fan of the site and channel, as well as an independent developer, and he's here to talk about some of the tough lessons he's picked up working in the independent game space. His previous game, Chromasia, sadly did not do so well, but we're going to be talking about what he learned from that and what he's applying to his upcoming game, Project Triad, at the moment. So, please welcome to the cast from Nexus Games. We know him as Sharky, but if you want to introduce yourself, now would be the time.
Hello. Well, I pretty much just go by Sharky on the internet, so Sharky is perfectly fine.
All right, then. So, Sharky, it's great to have you on. So, for people... Oh, is it unlisted? It shouldn't be unlisted.
Yeah, I'm seeing unlisted on my side. But my real name is Jim Tankersweet, and that's in the Chromasia credits. But right. I just normally go by Sharky.
All right. I just turned it to public. Huh, that was weird. I don't know why YouTube did that. Yeah, those aren't supposed to be unlisted. Oh, that's good. YouTube seems to be giving us a lot of trouble lately these days.
Yeah, that's pretty standard for YouTube.
Well, hopefully the stream is now public, so that should be good. Thanks for mentioning that, Mike, because I did not see that. But we have a whole lot to talk about tonight, and as I was... There you go, exactly. But it's great to have you on, Sharky. We've been talking a lot on the Discord channel, which for anybody new, you'll find a link to that down below if you'd like to join us. And there certainly is a lot to cover when it comes to independent game space. So, since this is your first time doing these casts, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about your background and kind of what you've been doing in the game dev space.
Well, my background, how can I do this in a way that doesn't take an hour? Well, I grew up playing video games, started with Atari and whatnot, and barely got into that when I was like 2. And been playing games basically all my life, and it was around the mid-2000s that I started getting into game development as more of a hobby. Like, I had done stuff as a kid, like most kids do, I think, do little game development stuff if they're really into games kind of thing. Like, imagine this with this level or something. It's not really much of a game development, but it's in there. Mm-hmm. And, it was around the mid-2000s that I started to get into this, and that was when I started just making a fan game in RPG Maker, Final Fantasy. And that ended up taking a life of its own and ended up becoming way too big of a project. And, to the point where it wasn't even a fan game anymore. This had to be like a full commercial release. And the scope was way too big. And, I realized that and just went and said, you know what, that's going to have to be backburnered. We're going to have to find something smaller and start with that. And then went through tons of smaller projects that just ended up failing for multiple reasons. Most of those reasons being that I couldn't do them all by myself. And when you're dependent on other people, it makes things harder, especially when you have very minimum way to compensate them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we had many, many years worth of failures, and finally, about 4 or 5 years ago, I met my teammate Monkey, and actually it wasn't that long ago. It was probably like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. Met him, and he's been with me ever since, and he does the programming. That's pretty much all he does, and then I handle rest of the stuff, whether it's I do it or I get somebody, I find out or arrange some way to get somebody else to do other stuff. And eventually we ended up we started on a game called Project Toaster and started developing it, and that ended up being too big of a game art wise. I mean, it wasn't too big like every feature wise, but art wise, it was too big. So we had to scale down, and but we had put so much work into it, we didn't want to stop. And then I thought about it, and there was one of the initial concepts to this was a little game jam that we did with rock, paper, and scissors that we said we were never going to make as a full game. And then we made it, it's like, hey, why don't we just take this original concept, we adapt it, we use what we did for Project Toaster, and we just changed the characters over to this, and that would drastically cut down the scale. And so we swapped, and that was basically the birth of Chromasia at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's very interesting again about how things developed. I know later in the cast we're going to be talking about game design documents and again, some of the challenges of knowing what you can do versus what you want to do. But like we said a few minutes ago, you obviously released Chromasia, and sadly it did not do as well as you expected. And Mike asked in chat, how did you and Monkey meet?
We met through, oddly enough, we met on Twitch through another person who was also named Monkey, who they were friends, and he was watching my stream, and then he ends up bringing the other monkey, my monkey, in, and then we ended up playing like games on Twitch. We were playing Starbound. We had a server set up on my monkey server, and we all played Starbound on Twitch, and we were, just doing all these crazy builds and everything, and we became friends. And eventually, one day I learned that he could program. I was like, really? I think that was when I was doing a game jam. Yeah, we were doing a game jam for me and an old teammate, Cave Dens. We're doing a game jam for a Twitch game, and he came in and he was in chat and he was really helping us out with programming. And at like a day into that game jam, we ended up bringing him onto that game jam, and then he's been here ever since.
All right. Also, Sharky, I think for the first time you may actually be a little bit loud, like from your mic. If you could maybe just lower it just a little bit. Or just push it like a little further back. Either one should be good. You're just kind of a little bit loud in my ear. So anyone else, is it a little loud for you folks listening?
Let me see if I can do a little bit of rearrange it. All right. How about that?
That should be good. All right. Another question from El Gordo. How many game jams have you/your team been, and what type of goal as developers do you have?
Well, we have done, I think, as a total, and when I say we, I mean me and whoever else, which may have just been myself. I think it was 3 or 4. I think it was 3.
Okay. And
and one of those were myself.
Okay. And I just want to clarify the follow-up about your goal as developers. That was goals related to doing game jams. Like, what was your goal at a game jam? Like, I guess in terms of learning or what you wanted to do there.
Well, the first game jam was just a developer friend, which happened to be the CEO of Berserk Games, which became my first mentor. He just told me to just go out and do it. Just go do it and go make a game. And I had very little experience with programming, and I just went in there with GameMaker. I had played around with it a little bit, and I made a game. And surprisingly, it actually got done, and actually a day in advance. And I actually slept every night. And turns out that that's oddly the secret to completing the game jam is you don't work 24/7. You go get sleep.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see, any other questions? We'll see how things develop there. But yeah, I guess getting back to the topic. So, Chromasia was built from your previous project idea, and for people watching us right now, obviously for our regulars, they know what Chromasia is because we did a stream of it. But for everybody else, how did the game turn out in terms of its design?
Are you talking about like the game itself, or
Yeah,
are you
like
talking about itself?
let's start with the design first, and then we'll move on to sales.
So the design, basically, since we had to kind of scrap what since we were scrapping what Project Toaster was, and we're adapting into Chromasia from the concept. Basically, all we had was your standard tactical RPG. Nothing really special about it. So like, we didn't actually start with the design file, oddly enough, on this one because of that situation. So we just developed it into a good tactical RPG, and then as we were, really bog standard though, and as we went in farther development, stuff started to come out like people liked kind of the cartoony kind of comic book kind of stuff to it. So we went more with that, tried to go more with the style, like with the critical hits and how the dialogue boxes look like comic book bubbles kind of thing, and all kinds of little stuff like that. Although I don't think that completely touched base with everybody, and they didn't get that vibe completely. But then we had like we wanted to amplify the rock paper scissors theme to it, so we ended up adding the little mini games here and there that gave it that, as well as gave it something unique, because generally in your tactical RPGs you just have a set crit rate, which is what we had at first. But then we said, wouldn't it be cool if we could just have like a variable crit rate that is based on RNG? Because I mean, crit rate is already RNG anyway, so it's like an RNG of an RNG, but that RNG is at your choice, because the way we have it done is the minigame actually picks what it's going to pick, rock, paper, scissors, before you even click anything. So the 3 buttons that it renders out is actually not, rock, paper, scissors. It's win, lose, or draw.
Yeah.
And then you pick which one you want to do, win, lose, or draw. But it's displayed as rock, paper, scissors. And, but that's kind of hard to get in a video game, because, like, in a regular game of rock, paper, scissors, it's a lot of psychology, and you can't really have that psychology with a computer. So we did things to limit it and make it better to where, like, if you lost, you're going to instantly win your next battle. So it kind of feels good, and stuff like that. Little cheats that make the player feel better, because you can't use the psychology, so that really puts the player at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
I was just going to say, and like we've spoken many times before about how RNG and probability can be very tricky when it comes to design. Again, like we talk about it with FTL, Darkest Dungeon, and so on, and it can be hard to get across to the player sometimes. Just, am I actually doing this, or is the game kind of like trying to cheat me in the end?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is see, the way we had it before we did the little cheats and everything to in the player's advantage, it was completely 100% fair. But 100% fair did not feel fair. It did not feel good. It felt like you were being cheated. So what we did was we were like, well, if the player experienced a loss, they have a downside to the game. It's like, if they experience another loss right after that, they're going to feel really bad. If they experience a draw after that, they're not going to feel like it was compensated. So we really need to give them a win if they've lost that last time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, it's very hard. Like as you said, like 100% fair of course, means that anything can happen. But then you have
Hmm.
those situations like with XCOM, where you'll miss like 80% chances in a row, and then it's like, okay, like now he gets 3 free kills on me because of dice rolls in the background.
Yep, exactly. Fair does not necessarily feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Fair is where you should start, and then you should see how it feels. Which playtesting is very important to that,
Mm-hmm.
uh, both for yourself and other people. Like it's important to get other people to playtest it, but you also need to playtest it yourself because there are things that you will see that other people do not,
Mm-hmm.
even if they are very critical.
Oh,
So, and let me tell you, playtesting, finding people to playtest, you wouldn't think that would be hard, but that is really, really hard. A lot of people will not do it, or they will, and the few that will, most of them won't do it right because they'll just think that, oh, I'm going to go play this game, and they just go play it, and then they go on with their day. They don't tell you anything. They don't give you any kind of
mm-hmm.
feedback. Nothing. So, like, finding some good testers, is really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I did the podcast with John Brieger, who does a lot of study and a lot of work with playtesting, like he said pretty much the same thing. Like you can give your game to like your best friends or like your family members. They don't like it, but they're not really going to tell you, this game is bad or this design doesn't work. Or you run into the situation where people will just say this is the greatest game ever, and it's like, okay, how's that help me with building this game?
Yeah. So what happened with Chromasia on its testing is we tested and they definitely gave feedback and everything. And we got to a point, though, towards the end where it was like, this is the greatest game ever.
Mm-hmm.
And there was definitely issues that I couldn't see them. My testers couldn't see them. But after we were released, both me, my testers, and like the public has seen them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that is unfortunately one of the real sad parts about how these things can turn out. That you can go through development thinking that you have the best damn game. Everything is perfect. Everybody's gonna love it, and then like day one of release, you're gonna get a bug list a mile wide of issues and complaints that now in retrospect it's all perfectly clear.
Yeah. Luckily, we as far as we know, there is no bugs in the game. Nobody has reported any bugs since we were released, and of course, low sales kind of prevents that a point. But as far as we know, there are no known bugs since release, and the the feedback we've gotten from our community, from the Steam page, has been 100% positive. We have a 100% positive review score, which, from as far as I know, we're the only people development team that has that. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, having a small number of reviews definitely helps that be in our favor, but
Mm-hmm.
that as far as I know is we're the only case of that. But there's probably other cases out there. I just don't know about them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it reminds me a lot of what I do with Game Wisdom here. That I'm not 30,000 subscribers, not yet, but the people who do find the channel, they generally stick around because they like the content, and sometimes it's just a challenge to get in front of people like that.
Yeah, getting in front of people, marketing or exposure rather, which is a subsection of marketing, is quite hard.
Yep. And unfortunately, it's something that we have seen made or break so many developers over these years. I mean, I'm sure you have examples. I know I have examples. I'm sure the people watching know developers who have really great ideas or really great games, and just nothing develops from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can make the greatest game in the world,
Mm-hmm.
but if nobody's ever heard of it, who's going to play it?
Yeah. Um, you were watching when we played that Vision Soft Reset game. I mean,
yeah, I love that.
I am like, again, like when I spoke to that developer, I think that cast will probably go up in record form before this one. But I was like, I kind of hit it well, but I was really surprised that was his first time making a Metroidvania game. Like that was better than I think Metroidvanias I played from like established studios. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it was a really good design. It was really good. You know, I would hope that if I did a Metroidvania, which I'm probably never going to do because it's not within our subset of genres and stuff. But if we were to, I would hope that it would be something along that because that he seemed to have a very similar design philosophy as me, and you know, seeing how he's a fellow shark, that that weighs some stuff, and he's a really cool guy. I talked to him shortly after that. It was really interesting.
hmm but yeah, like I with all that praise though, time for a little bit of the damper. I just went onto his Steam page and looked at there's only 7 user reviews right now for it.
Yeah, I seen that. I seen the reviews and I was like, oh no, this is going the same way Chromatia did.
hmm Yeah. And I think at least the one positive though, when we spoke to him on the cast, that he kind of he already got a paying job while working on that game. So it sounds like it's not going to be like do or die. But unfortunately, for a lot of developers out there, it can very much become that case. Did you have a chance to see? I think I may have played this before you found me, but the game Dicetiny by any chance?
The which one?
Dicetiny, Dicetiny.
I don't think so.
All right,
I don't
let me
think so.
see. That is a game that was. I spoke to the developer about this. This was back in like 2015, 2016. They had a very interesting idea for it. It came out and it just did not do well at all. And it didn't do so well to the point that the company basically went bankrupt and got bought by the bank. And now the guy is in. He was. I think last I heard, he was in a lot of trouble, like pretty much blacklisted, because of the fact that his company got foreclosed on. And,
Yeah,
and
that
unfortunately, yep.
surprised me sadly.
Yep. And I think, and again, like getting back to like the nature of this podcast that we're doing, like it's one of those things that isn't really said enough. I think to new and prospecting developers by the fact that it is great to be able to make video games for a living, but it is really damn hard to do that. I was just talking to the vice principal of one of the local high schools here about doing a talk, and I said the very same thing to her that yes, every student who's probably doing like their computer lab or in a computer club is probably thinking about making a video game on their own or wanting to do that for a living. But even if you have a great idea, even if you do everything right, you can still fail when it comes to doing this, and it's very tough, I think, for a lot of people to understand.
Absolutely. The market right now is very, I guess you would call it turbulent or flooded or something. I don't know what you would exactly call it, but it's a very bad shape because right now there's pretty much only one solution, and that's on top of one core solution, and that's after you get rid of all the other solutions. After they've been applied. I mean, you have the fact that the store is filled with asset flips and low effort games, and the lack of curation basically. And if you could get that in there, if those would all clear out, and that's a lot of stuff. I know this team isn't the market, but this team is definitely a big part of it. And you have the same thing on other platforms, non PC platforms. And getting onto a console platform is not the easiest thing to do.
hmm Especially depending on the game itself as well.
Yeah, and the controls.
hmm
And then the other aspect is even if you got rid of all that, you still have the core aspect that there are so many good indie developers out there that that we have Steam libraries full of games that we do not have time to play, and they're all good games. So when we don't have enough time to play the games we have, that means that we're less likely to buy other games, or if we do buy them, we're not going to play them, kind of thing, and they're just going to sit in our Steam library. And that's the very core problem is that there's just too many indies and not enough customers in the end, and supply and demand. Mm-hmm. So like with that, you just really, the only option is for indies to die, and that's, we're one of the casualties with Drum Asia, and Soft Vision Reset is another casualty, and I'm sure there will be tons of more.
Yeah.
But the thing is there will be a few of us, and hopefully I'm one of those, that keep on persisting and fight through this slump in the market to where like a lot of indies are going to die, but some of those are going to come back to life. Mm-hmm. We're going to come back to life. To whether that life becomes something, we don't know, but we are going to come back to life, and hopefully we actually get our foot in the door, kind of thing, and able to stay in there. And once you get the foot in the door, as long as you keep going, you're good.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, and to clarify on that point, I mean, we've said this before many times on these casts, that when you have that hit, or that one game that breaks out, it really does become almost a positive feedback loop in that case. Again, like to give you an example, we just heard this week that Darkest Dungeon 2 has been announced by Red Hook Games. Red Hook had pretty much like almost like a pitch perfect, marketing and development cycle between going pre-Kickstarter to Kickstarter to early access to release the consoles. So, and I was saying this many times before, that whatever game Red Hook was going to announce after Darkest Dungeon, people are going to be talking about it. And lo and behold, they've announced Darkest Dungeon 2. And like just like I am right here, that there are a lot of people who are going to be looking at that game and probably buying that sight unseen day one just simply on that name. But as we all know, things could have been the complete opposite. Nobody could have bought Darkest Dungeon, and that could lead to a lot more trouble. But
and then Darkest Dungeon 2 wouldn't have been even a guarantee to even exist, and even if it did, if it would even sell.
Yep.
And that's the thing, though, is it doesn't even have to be a hit. It just has to be. It has to make money.
It has to be known.
If it can break even, then it's probably enough to make the next game break even or do better.
Yep. Another good example I just pulled up, Abbey Games, who went from Ruse to Renowned Explorers, and now they're doing Godhood. And each one of those games, they weren't, multi-million-dollar successes. They're not on Easy Street by any means. But it was enough to allow them to keep going, to make the next game, and again, to build up that fan base of people who want to see them succeed.
Yeah, exactly. It's built in the fan base. If you can get one game that builds any kind of remotely sized fan base that can support you in a decent quantity, then you can take that fan base and expand it.
Yep.
I mean, the fan bases will shrink some too at the same time, but as long as you're doing things right, and I'm using that as a broad term, if you're doing things right, your fan base probably isn't going to shrink by much, and it's only going to grow from there.
And going back to a point you made a few minutes ago, Sharky, regarding the amount of games being released. Another thing that I was thinking about that is that I think it also hurts experimental games as well. Because if you have, 30 games being released, 30 games in your library that you haven't played yet of genres that you do like, what's the chance that you're going to buy, some game you've never heard of or something that is a genre that you don't know about? Because,
Exactly.
I mean, for people who watch, you know that the fighting game genre is a big blind spot for me. Like, it doesn't matter to me if your game is going to be the game of the year, like the number one fighting game of 2018 or 2019. That doesn't mean anything to me because guess what? I have over 500 games that I got in probably over 2018 that I still haven't had a chance to play through. So why should I risk my time and my money on your game regardless of the quality?
Yeah. Thing with fighting games is I feel like most of them have issues with controls. Like they're just not intuitive.
Oh
The
yeah.
only one I found that's intuitive is Soul Calibur. Although, like, I haven't liked the newer Soul Caliburs, I think past like 4, I think it was. But like the ones that are 4 and below, I really, really
Yeah.
do enjoy.
Oh yeah. I mean that's a topic in of itself in terms of making controls feel intuitive. I mean, you watched me when I tried, or probably mostly failed, when it came to Kaizo games. And,
Oh
like,
yeah.
Kaizo, it uses the same exact control scheme of all the Mario World games. But it's taken to such a heightened or elevated level that unless what they're expecting you to do it, you're never going to figure that out on your own. And for people watching us right now, I was playing the easy or the light Kaizo games. There are Kaizo games out there that rely on you to know bugs and glitches in the original Super Mario World to have any chance of beating them. And they won't tell you what those are. They assume that you know, like, the item duplicate glitch, or being able to get Mario to, like, kind of get his model to clip through a wall to do a wall jump.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's more
To
out
what?
there.
Yeah. To what Mike says there about how I define indie and different from hobbyist. So, indie would be somebody who is trying to do this professionally. Hobbyist is just they're doing it in their spare time whenever they want. You know, the hours don't matter. It's not a company. It's just their whatever they want to do, kind of, which can evolve into an indie because that's what we did. Because originally it was a fan game for Final Fantasy, and then that evolved into a bigger game. So that would be what I would define as the difference between hobbyist and indie. You know, where indies trying to do it professionally, and hobbyist is doing it as a hobby.
Yeah. And Elgordo asked me earlier about a developer who's been doing it for 20 years without a hit, and I mentioned Jake Burgett. And Jake is a really good example, again, I think, of that distinction between hobbyist and indie developer. He's been doing this now, like we said, for a very long time. Again, like 10 years, let alone 10 years in the independent space, it might as well be like 30 for some people. And he looks at his games as a business. He knows, like, similar to someone like Cliff Harris, that, and as you said too, Sharky, that if you just want to make a game for you and your friends, you can do that. But
Yep.
that's not living off of your games. That's not making a living, period. And it can be a very harsh truth, again, for people to realize. Like, I saw, I'm like subscribed to various like Facebook like independent games groups. I see some of their messages from time to time. And like I see people making like these posts about I have this amazing idea for a game, and they show like footage of it, and it's like it looks again like very low quality, and they're so proud and they're so excited, and they're they like this is gonna be their next big indie hit, and I'm sitting here going like I could crush this person right now if I said what I think about like this game,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, like that is not an exception to the rule. Like that is what I see a lot from first-time developers, from people who again think that I can just make a game and I will succeed. Like that's it. And again, like longtime fans know that I hate the phrase "just make video games." Like that's the key to success. If you just keep making games, you're going to succeed. And I don't think that works at all. And I think you may agree with that as well.
To a point. The point would be I like the phrase, but I don't like the phrase for selling games. I like the phrase for completing a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because just completing a game, having one 100% complete, is such a big thing. It is. Let me tell you, all my years that I've done this before I completed Chromasia, I look back at that and it's like, just 6 months before I started Chromasia, when we were working on Project Toaster, and I look back at that after I completed Chromasia, and I'm like, I was such a noob back then. I had no idea what the heck I was talking about.
Yep.
Because completing a game is just such a big thing. And when I say completing a game, I mean like polished and everything. And polishing is a huge part. Like, I think in Chromasia, like, of the 2.5 years of development, I think about a year of that was spent on polishing.
Mm-hmm. And I just nodded my head so many times, I think my neck just cracked there. I don't know if anyone heard that. But, yeah, I mean, again, getting that first game out there, even if it sucks, even if it is just crap, and again, like Chris says, somebody to find says all my friends have played it. Even if you can just get one game out, that is such a huge step ahead of, again, there are people who can spend a lifetime just making prototypes or making little games, 2 to 3 minute long ones. But
yep, I mean, I spent like 15 years doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, like, for me, like, with how I've grown as a writer when it comes to writing the blog posts, writing my first book, writing the second book. Like, again, like, I can't go back. I'm sure you may feel the same way about your prototypes. Like, I can't go back and read some of my earlier posts. It's like, all of a sudden, I just see, like, 37 errors I made. I'm like, did I really write like that back in the day?
Well, I can go back and look at it, but I'm not looking at it from like a perspective of what did I do wrong here. It's like, how can I take this and make this great?
Mm-hmm.
That leads into a meme. I'm not going to finish that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I look back at that original project, the fan game that was a fan game of Final Fantasy that became a bigger project of its own. I look back at that and I look at the design of it, and it is basically copy and paste of Final Fantasy with a little bit of tweaks here and there, and it's not very original. And I have my mind constantly, I have that kind of in the far background of my mind. But anytime, like, I see something that could trigger that kind of response of, like, something I could, an idea that I could use for, I instantly take it and write it down. I do that with all my ideas. I have, like, all of those old prototypes and whatnot running around in the background of my head. And if an idea comes up, I write it down, because you can lose those ideas very easily.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But and that goes for new games too, or parts of games. Just a random idea, I write it down.
And again, and that's the crazy thing about game development, is that there is no, and this goes to a board fan's point that I'll bring up in a second, that there is no magic formula for game design. Or, it's one of the challenges of talking about this stuff to begin with. And again, it's something that I've been saying more and more lately, that you can talk, it's very easy to explain to someone about programming. It's very easy to explain to someone what an artist does. But how do you explain to someone what makes a game, or make a design of a game, good or bad? And as extension of that, as Board's saying, there's not much info on there how to successfully market a game. And following up with El Goro's point, even doing everything right, it can still fail. And
yep.
Again, it's very hard, I think, for a lot of people to realize that. Some of the last big hits in the last few years.
The thing I've noticed is that you can have a really crappy game and market it really well, and it will succeed.
Yeah.
Where at the same time, you could have an absolutely amazing game. Something happens to the marketing, whether you didn't do it, it failed, it didn't reach its target audience, whatever it is that caused it to not do well in marketing, will cause a great game to just completely not exist,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, and like one of my go-to examples is I'm still like actually two examples I'm still very annoyed about to this day. The first one is Tilted Mill. Did you hear of Tilted Mill before, Sharky?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
They are a developer. They came from the Impressions, the City Builder era, Chris Beatrice, and they were trying to push city building design forward. They did SimCity Societies, Children of the Nile. Children of the Nile is a game that I need to show off at some point because of how unique it is. And my like favorite underrated game, Hinterland. It is like it's one of those games that is such a flawed title, but it just works for me. It's basically Diablo meets city building, and it was one of those games that, and I said this before about them, I think they came out at the wrong time. I think if they were making games like 5 to 10 years later when the market was different, it would have done so much better for them. But they were working on the game Medieval Mare, and then the studio just ran out. Yeah, we streamed Hinterland, but not Children of the Nile. That's the very unique one. And then the other developer was Cryptic Comet, which is one of those developers that you either know exactly who I'm talking about. Yeah, I think you were. Or you've never heard of Cryptic Comet before. But he made the game Armageddon Empires, that game The Occult Chronicles that I streamed, and the game Soleum Infernum. And he was pretty much a solo developer. And his games are just so high concept in their design, but nobody played them because he couldn't get on Steam, because this was back in 2011, 2012 when the platform was still closed. And again, that's the thing that and I was saying this on our Discord channel the other night, that it infuriates me sometimes when I think about all the great games and all the work that went into them that will never see, recognition for them.
Yeah. And that's the sad thing to the current industry. And when I say the current industry, I mean from now for the foreseeable future that hopefully will change, and back several years. It's a sad reality of things, and it's not good. But hopefully the game industry can recover. And when I say the game industry, I don't mean like on the consumer side. I mean the consumer side's already there. It's very strong on that side. The problem is there's so many great games that there's not enough consumers to consume. So we need more consumers, or we need or just some indies are going to have to die, and then hopefully we'll have a good cohesive part after that. I really don't want to see any indies die, but that's besides having just more people start gaming, that's the only solution I can see.
Yep, and I want to get your thoughts on this next point, Sharky, and for the chat as well. For the longest time, I've always thought that one of the strengths of the game industry has been the fact that it's very much indirect competition for the most part. Again, if you're making a 2D Metroidvania and I'm making a kart racer, we're not directly competing with each other on those fronts. Likewise, if you enjoy platformers, you can buy 5 different platformers and get 5 different experiences. But it seems like even that advantage doesn't really hold water these days, by the fact that, again, there's just so many games being released. And as you just said, there are more people playing video games these days. Again, compared to the early thousands, 90s, and 80s, that number has certainly grown. But in the same breath, though, it's not, I don't think, and I've said this before, I forget the term that I use, that we're not creating I think consumers, like as you said, like we're creating fans. Again, we have Fortnite fans, we have Apex Legends fans, we have Mario fans. But how many people who play Fortnite are going to play Minecraft? Or how many people who play Minecraft are going to play, I don't know, XCOM? And I think that's where this problem is, that people assume that even though like we have millions of people playing Fortnite, that doesn't mean millions of new consumers.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that point, but that is a definitely good point because there are certain people out there that stick to first-person shooters of various kinds, whether it's a battle royale or a regular first-person shooter or third-person shooter or cooperative or any kind of variation on that kind of thing, and then they don't even touch like other games that have like first-person shooter mechanics, but have other mechanics on top of that, like a 7 Days to Die, which is a crafting survival horror game that has first-person shooter mechanics in it, but it has like so much other stuff to it, and they just don't touch it, kind of thing, and they're just strictly limited to strictly first-person shooter or third-person shooter in some direct sense, kind of thing, and they're not consumers for tactical RPGs or any of these other kind of games. I mean, like we all have like personal preferences. Maybe we have a genre we don't like, but there are a lot of people out there that have only one genre that they touch, and I see that in the biggest sense on shooters.
Yeah, and like we were saying earlier with when it comes to the market like that, like if you're a shooter fan, you're not going to play a platformer or a horror game or anything like that. And this next point, I think, is more for the AAA side than it is for the independent. But we're seeing that issue in the AAA space, where developers assume that every game should be selling 3 to 5 million copies. I mean, again, I still remember that whole point that Capcom made. This was back during, I'm sorry, not Capcom, EA with Dead Space. That if the game doesn't sell 5 million copies, it's not going to do well. I can't imagine there being 5 million survival horror fans. And
yeah,
it's unfortunately like the larger example we see in the independent space, that as we said, like there's only so many hours in the day and there's only so many people out there wanting to buy these games. And Chris said an interesting point, that there's one market that wants games that don't end and one that wants games that are completable. And I think that kind of goes to this point, that there are people out there who do want to try out new games, who do want to experiment. But I think that is just a very small number. Again, compared to the people who they have their game. Whether it's somebody who just wants to play Farmville all day, or somebody who wants to play Madden all day. But again, you can't count on those people when it comes to sustaining the industry.
Right. I want to go back and hit a topic you said about game developers being in a competition with each other. And I don't think that's true, because what I've encountered is like game developers kind of seem like almost like a small town in America to me kind of thing, where everybody pretty much knows everybody else, whether indirectly or directly. And so you hear rumors, you hear info about everybody's talking back and forth, but we're all generally pretty much very friendly with each other and not in competition at all. We generally try to help each other as much as possible.
I think you may have misheard me. I said they're not directly in competition. It's more of an indirect, as in everybody's just trying to get a piece of the same market. It's not the same as one developer trying to fight another one to get their game out.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that maybe on the marketing side, but generally the marketing team is like a separate team.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and for sure. I mean, again, as you just said, Sharky, and I've seen this especially on Twitter, that independent developers kind of have become, again, like the ones who do succeed and the ones who are out there, it becomes almost like a community. Again, everyone knows Rami Shmali. There's so many developers out there, my brain tends to fail. Derek Yu, Edmund McMillan being another big example of this. Like, everyone tends to know each other, and I think that's one of the great things about the independent space is that, generally speaking, developers want everybody to succeed. Because again, nobody wants to see a failure. And I think that's one thing that everyone can agree on.
Yeah, I think game developers want to have some free time so they can play other indie games
Yeah.
that they love, and they want more of those out there. If we only had the time to play them. But like, we pretty much want everybody to succeed, except for the few corrupt ones, and we generally don't say much about them, or we kind of thing, or we being small town kind of thing. There's rumors going everywhere, so you hear about the stuff, kind of thing. But we generally don't like gossip or anything about it. But you do hear about stuff because like you can't stop from hearing about it because I mean it's in the news to a certain point, and we just more up on the news in that specific area. And back to what you said about succeeding and about how many copies you need to sell and everything, and that's a real area that's a problem with the business side. I mean, you have, if you just look at it this way, to where your business, you have to pay employees. If you pay one employee at minimum wage, keep in mind that pretty much no game developer is going to work for this. No professional one anyway. There are amateurs and stuff in contract work and stuff like that can do stuff like that. But if we're talking about in the professional sphere, nobody's going to work for this. But even one employee at minimum wage for $40 an hour for 1 year is going to cost you $15,080. But that's what you're paying them, not what the business is paying. You have to actually pay a payroll tax before you can actually issue those paychecks, which is about 25-30%. It is roughly half of whatever they charge out on taxes. So, like, if you're paying enough to be on tax rolls, if you're in the 20% bracket, then the business has to pay 20%. If you're in the 30% bracket, then the business has to pay 30%. And at that rate, you're looking at now $18,500 for the business side, and that's just for one employee for 1 year. And then when you're talking about a more realistic wage, like $22 an hour, 21, 22, you're looking at $56,000, and that's just for 1 year. And most games cannot be completed in a year. When you're talking about most games, you're talking about a 3-year cycle, and again with at that point for the real world kind of pay of 22 an hour, you're looking at $169,000 for one employee. Then you take that and multiply that by 5 employees, and 5 employees is still a really, really small developer. And you're looking at $848,000. You look at 15 employees, which is like the pretty much agreed to ideal size for indie, and that is $2.5 million just to pay your employees. And you look at it, and you look at a game on Steam. Because Steam has pretty much an industry standard of 30%, although it seems that recently we're getting away from that. But for now, we'll go off of that. So at a $15 game, and this is why pricing your game is very important, and don't underprice your game, and don't oversell your game either. By going with too low of a price or too high of a price. But at a $15 game, you consider 30%. Tax percentage from Steam, right? And then there's also going to be a taxes that you don't know about, and it is about 20%. So on Chromasia, when we sell a game at full price for $14.99, we get roughly $7.50 per copy. So it's cutting half of that right off the top before just off the top stuff. And when you consider that 100 sales is only going to give you $750, and one employee for $725 is $15,000. There's a little bit of discrepancy there. You look at 50,000 sales, and this is not a easy thing to achieve, especially in today's market. It was a lot. I mean, like back in 5 years ago, that was pretty easy to accomplish. But today, that is insanely hard unless you have a developed fan base already from having a game before that got a fan base.
Yeah. And
even at that, you're looking at 50K copies as $375,000, and $375,000 compared to 5 employees at a reasonable rate is $848,000. You're way into the red. You're so bankrupt, it's crazy.
Yep.
And then you look at 200K. 200K is, in today's market, a wildly successful game. A wildly successful game. Not the most successful game, but wildly successful in today's market without having a previous fan base kind of thing. Or even with a previous fan base, that's pretty huge accomplishment. But that's only $1.5 million. So if you had a team of 5 that you were paying them decent, that's $650,000 that you have left over after you pay the 5 employees. And that's enough to hire maybe 1 or 2 more, and then all the money's gone.
Yep. And there's a whole lot to unpack with what you just said there, Sharky. Yeah, and I think the point that I was actually thinking about, I was trying to look this up while you were talking. And again, there's 2 big things. Like the first one is that what you just described there in terms of, again, the cost of making a game versus the amount of money you're actually pulling in, that is something that is lost on a lot of consumers. Again, we've made that joke before, that people think that if I sell, $100, if I sell, 500,000 copies of my game, and I sell for like $2, I'm a millionaire. I'm rich now. But so much.
If you're a solo dev, maybe.
Yeah, but like so much of the cost of making a game goes on behind the scenes. And what you just described there, again, with regards to people not, getting paid, they're basically going below minimum wage in a lot of cases. And that is a very big point. And I want to talk about the passion when it comes to the game industry, but I won't put that on the bench for another minute. But we see this also on Kickstarter with developers massively undercutting, how much money they expect this game will cost. And I'll give you guys this is an example I still go back to. Did you hear the game Too Dark by any chance?
I think I've heard of it, but I'm unsure.
Too Dark was developed by Frederick Renown. He was the developer who created Alone in the Dark from way back in the day. So he did I only was a Kickstarter. He did, I think, the European equivalent of Kickstarter to raise money for it. They raised about $38,000 to make this game, which it sounds good, on first part.
Yeah.
But here's the bit of the catch. It was a team of, I think, 15 to 20 people working for 2.5 to 3 years on the game, making it with just about $38,000.
Yeah, that sounds like getting paid about 5 cents an hour.
Yeah. And when it came out, it was just, as Alberto said, it was undersell completely. Like, so many things were missing.
Yeah, I mean, like, $38,000. I mean, if you were a solo dev and you could finish it within 2 years, that would be about breaking even. That would be about breaking even because, minimum wage, $15,000 a year. You times that by 2, you get $30,000, and that's right about there. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're a single developer and you can do it in 2 years, yeah, I mean, once you go to 3 years, that's 45,000, and you're way, way under funded there. And to be honest, it's really hard to number one even figure out how much money you need, because you don't know. There's no way to figure it out. It's just a wild shot in the dark. Basically, it's a guesstimate at best.
Oh yeah.
And even at that, like, the fact is even if you knew that amount, if you put that amount on a Kickstarter and you're not going to see one dime until you get to that amount, the likelihood is that amount, unless you get a ton of hype around it, you're never going to hit it, and it's just going to be a failed Kickstarter. And you really kind of have to set it lower, kind of thing, just to hope that you can get something so you can go work on it.
Oh yeah, and
then deal with it.
And not only that, but people who undercut the Kickstarter and then hoping that, goal number 3 is actually what I need to make this game. But what happens if you just barely make the Kickstarter? And there's a developer who I saw, I don't want to mention the name here, I don't want to give them any more trouble, but they did just that. They sold the game, I think, at the Kickstarter's, I think, at $25,000. But they were actually needing at least $40,000 to $50,000, what they estimated to finish that game, and they never got that. And they were basically hoping that they would get an angel investor or a publisher to, finish up the costs. And again, guess what happened? They never got it.
It didn't happen.
Yep. And the game, I think, at this point is dead. It is just, a ghost on the Steam store right now.
Yeah, the thing is if you can't get what you need in the first round of funding, then you're probably not going to get what you need at any point, because usually the first round is the highest, because that is when the most hype, the most promotion, the most everything is in there. And if you were to get more after that, it would be more subsidiary. I can't even say the word, but I think you know what I mean. It's a little bit on top of this. It's like tipping at a mill. You have your mill that you paid $40 for, and here's, I don't know what, 10% on top. That's your second investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got your first investment of the cost of the mill, and then your second investment was the tip, if you were lucky. I mean, there is definitely exceptions to that, but that's a generalization to what you're lucky to get.
Yeah. And like with the costs, like when it comes to like Kickstarter, again, like as you just said, like there's no way of knowing how much these games are going to come out to, and I think that's further made muddied again by the variety of Kickstarter projects. Again, you see one person making a Kickstarter for I will make this game in $5,000, and then you have somebody else saying I need $250,000 to make this one. And you can even see, again, like so many people, like you don't know, like from the consumer point of view, how much has already been done for that game or where that money is going. I know a lot of people were very upset about the Shenmue Kickstarter and the Bloodstained Kickstarter when they were asking for money, but the game was already being published at that point. And again, it's just all these things that just make it hard to get legitimate answers.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really go off of what one Kickstarter price is off of the other, because games are in different stages of development. Like if you go to Kickstarter and your game is 2.5 years of development already, and you just need that extra 6 months, you're not going to need as much money as a person who just started their 3 years kind of thing, assuming that everything's 3 years. But you never know at what stage that is, or even how long the development is, because like developers don't even know how long it's going to be. Like we we do a design, and we often, not always, but often map things out and try to figure out roughly how much each time is going to take. And then we add about 25% to that. And, that's our shot in the dark to when the game's going to be complete. Although not all of us do that. That's more high-level professional, but, like, some of the lower-level professionals do that as well. But, I mean, we haven't done that because we don't have a specific time period that we have to get things done. We just try to make progress as reasonably fast as we can, and as we set goals for ourselves, like we're going to have like this, and this done by this date, and we try to get that done. And we definitely have time goals and everything, but we don't have like a final finish line time goal kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
and time goals is definitely very important.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't think I've ever ran into a game developer who knew exactly when their game was going to be done. Like, there is not a single developer out there who can say, I will make this game exactly in 2 years, 3 months, 4 days from now at exactly this amount of cost, and it will be perfect when it comes out. And there is a way to do that, and let me tell you that way. It's a very cheater way, and we did this in Chromasia. We finished the game, and then we said it's going to be out in a month or 3 months or something. I think it was like 5 weeks or something. We said it's going to be out on this date. It's already done, Yeah.
The only issue was, just making sure that Steam would actually let it go up at that point, which there's all kinds of approvals processes in there, which, I mean, surprisingly, Steam actually denied Chromasia, I think, 3 times from going up on the store. But it won't deny asset flips and, stuff on there because, like, its system seems to be based on what extras you put on there. Because, like, you go through a checklist, you're like, okay, it's a game, okay, check, which is what most of the things, go underneath, the low quality stuff. And then they just get straight on there kind of thing. All they have to do is have a file that says .exe on it, and they're good, whether it works or not.
Yeah.
But, like, we had, like, full controller support, this, that, the other, and Steam denied us because we're 1.5 years into this, and we don't have full controller support in there. It's like, well, with the way this works is the way our engine and everything is shaping up, controller support is like one of the very last things we want to put in, because if we don't, then everything's going to get messed up. And we're going to have to keep on doing it over and over and over, redoing the same thing we just did. So it's one of those things that we need to save for the last part of the development. So we kept on getting denied by Steam because we didn't have that in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we could have unchecked that and then put it in there, and then maybe rechecked it later, but we didn't want to do that. We just wanted to not risk it because we didn't know the system. There may not be a way to add that back in. We don't know. So we just wanted to not risk it and just leave it in there. And it was not approved to go on Steam until I think it was like 2 weeks before it launched. But the Steam page had been up for like a year or so before that, but it was not actually approved to be published until like 1 or 2 weeks before release. And that was cutting things a little bit close.
Oh yeah. And like as we were saying, like another major factor in all this are the stores themselves. And I think Mike asked this question like it seems like an hour ago, but we've been going for just over an hour already, and it seems like we just got started. But Mike asked, like, what do you think about curated storefronts? Do you think that it will help? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Curation is a really kind of touchy subject, and it seemed to have a lot of the political feel around it, but I'll give my best opinion, and keep in mind this is an opinion. There's no right answer, at least at this point. But my feel is that we do need curation, and that curation is not censorship, but we need good curation, not I guess not poor curation. And there's many easy ways that you can mess it up and do really bad things for it and make it absolutely horrible. But if you can do really good curation and keep the asset flips from getting on there, or at least like making a section that all these games go onto, and same thing with the low quality games, either keep them from getting on or give them their own separate section of the store. You don't have to curate them to a point where they're not allowed on the store. You have to curate them to where they're sectioned off at the minimum, if allowed at all. Just put them in their own section. This is this, or and have like maybe the consumers go in there, and in case there is something in there, they can rate it up. Maybe have a separate section for not just those games, but maybe just all new games go there, and then until they're vetted, until they have review scores and whatnot, do they move to the big boys store page kind of thing. Mm-hmm. There's many different ways to do it, and I mean, you can do a combination. You can have like the all new games go to this section, but like all asset flips are denied kind of thing, and then the consumers vet out the games, to whether, and that would be a fairly automated system, not completely automated, because you would still want somebody, you have to have a human involved. There's no way you can do this without a human involved, and that's a place where it looks like Steam is never going to hit that mark kind of thing. But, other platforms might. And, yeah, Greenlight, it would be sort of like Greenlight, but it would be after they're released kind of thing on that section of the platform. And there's tons of ways to do it. I don't know which way is the right way, but I feel that curation is a must if this industry is going to keep from getting worse. Because with, we already have too many good indie games that we can't play. And then when you consider, so it's already flooded with good stuff. And then you consider the low quality stuff added into there, and that probably doubles the games, if not higher. And then you add in the asset flips and everything, and that brings the total up to probably about 50, 100 times more. So, like, it just becomes overflooded to the point of insanity. But even if we can take all of those away, even if we do all that curation, that's not going to solve the problem, completely solve the problem. I mean, that's definitely going to take a big bite out of it, but it's not going to completely solve the problem because there's too many good games out there for gamers to play, and not enough time, and not enough gamers to play them, kind of thing. And it's debatable to what we can do to solve the problem, besides like some indies dying. And I don't want to see that happen, but it's happening now, whether we want it to or not. And we were one of those, but we will be reborn, hopefully in that second life as a phoenix. We get our flame, we get a flamethrower on us, and we just take off.
Yep, and like as you were talking, I pulled up the Steam new release page, and like you can see on here like all the games that are being released, like just today. Like
about 30 or 40, right?
Let's see, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now there's, oh my goodness, there's at least like 50, 60 games. Just
more than I expected.
Today. That's not, this week. It still is going. apparently February 22nd is a very popular day right now for games being released. And again, like a lot of this stuff, it looks just very much like, as Chris saying, like as a first project, or somebody just literally taking like the very first thing they did, or the first thing that isn't crashing, and putting it on Steam. And,
Yeah. With what Chris said, I would agree to that to a very small percentage, and then I would disagree to it to a very high percentage. I mean, there are programmers that are doing their very first games, and that is an asset flipper. But most of the asset flippers that I am aware of are chronic, where they have released a game every day, if not multiple games every day, for the last like 3 years.
mm-hmm.
And they're obviously not trying to improve their quality or anything. They're just shipping out stuff to get trading cards, and now the Steam's banned those. They're just I don't know exactly how they're making money, but they still are, and a lot of them still have like trading cards, because before Steam Direct started, when it was back Greenlight, these people had bought up hundreds and hundreds of game slots, because they just buy them all at once to get, so they don't have to fill out all the paperwork every day. They just do it like in this vast swamp of stuff, and they have still asset flips releasing today that have trading cards from Greenlight, which Greenlight ended a year ago.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said Greenlight ended a year ago.
About that.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, like I could excuse, like programmers doing their first, time, but that's not a bulk of the problem. The bulk of the problem is a very few people. Like there's like maybe 30 people, 40 people that are doing this, and they have their own forums. They have all this, scamming stuff basically all planned out, and it's quite nasty. I know one of the Steam curators that are very much in charge of finding out what exactly all the underlying things are, and they're an investigator, they're a journalist, as well as Steam curator, and they also talk many times directly to Valve, rather. But Valve doesn't listen too much to him. They have to. They want basically they want him to do like 6 months of work just investigating, and get every last detail of every last transaction and every last way everything's being done before Steam will do anything about it, and then they just ban them, and then instantly they'll make an alt account and Steam won't do anything about it, or Valve rather.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to go through another 6 months worth of investigation to prove that they're just the same account, or same person.
Oh yeah, and again, it's been one of those like nastier aspects about Steam and Valve is that we have historically seen they do not care about keeping things clean on Steam. Like it's basically at this point just a license to print money.
Yeah, they're making money off of it, and that's the reason why they don't care, because if they cared, they would make less money.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, what they probably don't realize is that they would actually make more money at the same time, because people would buy other games instead of those.
Yeah. And this is kind of like a tangent for the cast, but like as we've said on the Discord channel, like this is why a lot of developers, I know you as well, Sharky, that you're interested to see what's going on with the other digital stores. I know, like a lot of people are looking at Epic. I know you've talked about the Discord store a few times, and like this is going to be, I think, as we've said, this is going to be a very interesting year in terms of the whole digital storefront.
Yeah, it's pretty much chaos right now. I would not want to release a game right now, because the chaos right now, it's if you were unsure about making a game, when we made Chromasia and it flopped, if you thought the percentage of failure was there, it's probably way higher now that all this chaos is going on. I don't know, but my best guess is the chances for failure have probably tripled or went higher than that. But I don't know. I haven't gotten any official numbers or any kind of thing. It's purely speculation that I'm basing this off of. But that's what I would guess. And I know that it's very, very unsure market right now because of that, and I would not want to release a game right now. It's the thing about the different stores, like specifically Epic and Discord. Discord, or let's start with Epic. Epic is very developer friendly, but with their disabling of reviews and comments and stuff, it's very anti-consumer, and I think that's really going to have a trouble developing in the consumer market to where consumers are all right with that, because that's basically the consumers being, basically all right with being screwed over. And I think they have the same the same return policy as Steam does.
Yeah.
So I mean that's at least a breaking equal there. So like even if you do get screwed over, you can still get a refund in theory. I haven't necessarily heard anything about how good or bad they are with their review policy, compared to Steam. But like Steam is pretty consumer friendly, and it's going to be a harsh kind of tear, going in between. And I feel like because of that, a lot of consumers are not going to adapt to that, and because of that, Steam is it's not going to win out, or even do it may. I don't know how successful it will be, but I don't think it will be wildly successful at the current rate. Things can always change, but if they don't change on the reviews and all of this other stuff, and become more consumer friendly, I don't think they're going to go anywhere, realistically, to where it's of this thing like Valve is, where you can go on there and get any game, because there's going to be limited consumers over there, which means that developers going over there are going to have a lot higher chance of failing unless they get more eyes on them, which depends on the marketing and how many games are over there and how flooded that platform is, and it's a lot of variables, and it's not looking the best in my point, review. But like when you look at Discord has has been pretty consumer friendly, and they've been very developer friendly, and at the same time, they have a base of users on the platform that are all about gaming. So they definitely have a foothold to a certain point. Probably not the size of foothold that Epic has, but again, Epic has a foothold of people who play first-person shooters. And that kind of what we were talking about before, about that audience. And I figured that kind of audience would do well over there, kind of thing. And but that's not your general gaming audience. That's your general first-person shooter only kind of audience. And I figure, games like PUBG, Fortnite, Apex, Call of Duty, and all of these other first-person shooters could do amazing over there. But where I don't think the other indies that are making new stuff or making like old niche stuff is necessarily going to find any kind of audience over there to keep them going and make it survive. I don't know. I mean, they could, but unless they become more consumer friendly, I don't really see that happening or at least to a large extent. I mean, there's always a small extent everywhere, but to the large extent, I don't think there's going to be a survivable place there for most indies.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yep, and Draken was saying this earlier about Epic is very brute force, and yeah, I agree with both of you about that. As we've said and as we've seen, Epic is going for basically courting the developers. Throwing
Hmm.
basically putting the consumers maybe third or fourth down the list. And I think their overall strategy is basically, you know, we're going to have the games, so you're going to come over, whether you like it or not, kind of thing. But
Yeah, that's their idea behind the exclusives.
yeah, but the issue, as you've said, and as what people have been saying, is that it's going to be very rough, I think, to convince people to give up Steam. And like we've said this before many times over, that Steam does so much for the consumer, and those things, it sounds like very simple or very stupid things. Chat integration, downloading, patches, the Steam Workshop, and all that. But
Hmm.
that has done so much to build goodwill towards Steam. And we've said this before that, Steam is like, the devil that you know kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and there's a point Mike made that I won't get your thoughts on, Sharky. But before I do that, and then going to Discord, yeah, like Discord is one of the things that it kind of came out of nowhere, I think, for a lot of people. Like, one day we were all using Skype, the next day we're all on Discord, and now it's thankfully no, we are not doing too much on Skype these days. But they do have that potential there. But I think it's going to really come down to who's going to do the best job of courting everybody. Like as you said with Epic, like obviously Fortnite's going to do well in the Epic Game Store. I mean, yeah, duh. But could a game like Return of the Obra Dinn, could that stand on the Epic Game Store and still do well? They gave away What Remains of Edith Finch on the Epic Store, but how many people have either A bought it, or B weren't even going to bother with it if it was on that store?
Yeah, or even accepted it for free.
Yeah. I mean, I still haven't had a chance to play it. I mean, that's a perfect case. I've been wanting to play that game. I have it on the Epic Game Store. I haven't had a chance to sit down and play it because I'm still catching up with everything else.
Too many games, not
Yeah.
enough time.
But here's a point that Mike made, and I think, again, like even with this topic of, tough truths when it comes to the game industry, he
Hmm.
said that a store is not social media. And this is, I think, another very tough thing for a lot of people to understand. Because, again, for the longest time, being on Steam was your golden ticket. It was basically make game, get on Steam, profit. That was all you had to do. And it
Yep.
was like that. But as we've seen with the growing market, growing number of games and developers, you can't rely on that anymore. And it's one of those tough things, I think, for a lot of people to understand. That you think that getting onto Steam or getting onto Discord or itch.io, and that's it. That's all I need to do, and my game will succeed. But it doesn't work like that.
Back before it was flooded, did because it wasn't flooded. But now that it's flooded, no, you stand no chance basically at that rate, unless you just have a ton of blind luck. Like
Mm-hmm.
you just turn the corner and there's like $1 billion sitting on the floor. If you have that kind of luck, then yeah, go for it. You're going to succeed. But if you don't, then you're going to turn that corner and there's going to be nothing. It's going to be an empty desk, and one not worth any money.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be lucky to pay him to take it away.
Yeah. Yeah. No one buys a good game they never heard of, and yeah, I mean, in today's market, with the rise of YouTube, streamers, and all that,
Hmm.
I mean, you can't just release a game and with nothing, and you'll
Yeah,
see.
issue with content creators is you just can't. It just you can. There's a probably thousands of them that it's thousands of developers that contact these creators every year. I mean, you could probably attest to this,
Mm-hmm.
Josh.
Yep.
I mean, you're still small in size, but you probably get tons of people contacting you,
Mm-hmm.
and you just there's not enough time to cover all of them, basically. Not unless you're going to keep the coverage very short, in which case the developers are only going to get a one-hit video out of you. And in best case, they make a series out of you and make a whole lot of videos out of that. But even at that, becoming even just that one, the developer to just get that one show is very, very hard, because there's so many developers out there that are vying for attention. And that's where a lot of content creators come in and, start, saying, okay, we'll take whoever wants to pay, kind of thing. And then it becomes who's got money, and at which point, the people who are already successful become more successful, and the people who are trying to get established, the people that need the help the most, are ignored. And, all these new games, anybody who is not pretty much already going to be successful without the advertisement is going to fail. And there's very hard to get somebody to cover it. And even when they do, they're generally small. But even small ones here and there, if you can permeate smaller creators here and there, it is very helpful, as long as you have a game that they like. If it's a game that they don't like, then it won't really be a negative, but it definitely won't be a positive kind of thing. And I would put one caveat into that. In the case of a drama channel, if they want to start stuff, and you can just make yourself a target, and that's the point where it can get bad. But besides that, I mean, it's really almost kind of like a landmine field, rather. And it's difficult as a developer, and it's hard, because like a lot of these new starting out developers, myself especially, are really really lacking money. And lacking money is not the thing you want to have when you're going into marketing, especially when marketing is, in the end, pretty much what determines the success failure of your game. I mean, you like we said earlier, you can make the best game in the world, but if nobody's ever heard of it, nobody's going to play it. I mean, you can't get locked out and do no marketing, and it takes off. But I mean, do you want to gamble your livelihood on a really really astronomical chance? Do you want to take all your money basically to the lotto and put everything on one number?
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, there's two outcomes. The most likely outcome of you're going to be broke and homeless, or the very, very unlikely outcome of you're going to be freaking rich, or you might have a little bit of money, because like you could put all your money on that. You could put, let's say you had $25,000, you could put all that on that one number, and then you end up winning, but you end up winning $10,000, and it's like crap. But that's still better than nothing, which is the more likely outcome.
Mm-hmm. And before I get that, Mojo, thank you so much for the super chat donation there. But getting back to the point, I think Draken mentioned this a few seconds ago. Was it Draken? Oh no, he did say it, about how we have seen games trying to become more stream friendly. And it has become a major part, I think, for a lot of these developers. Because as you said, it is like winning the lottery. But you can't really bank on that. Like, there are people who, if PewDiePie mentions your game for like 5 seconds, that could be like 50,000, 100,000 copies sold right there.
Exactly.
But you can't build a studio around, hoping to get PewDiePie's attention. That's not how you build a company.
Yeah, I've said this to a couple of people. Like, they're like, "Is there any chance that Chromatia is going to survive?" And I was like, "At this point, not realistically. The only real chance is if PewDiePie covers it. Mm-hmm. I said that exact thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the challenge, like was Mike saying about the fan base, about marketing your game, like the fan base is definitely a major part of this, as we've talked about before. But it's still like it all depends on how the whole stickiness of social media plays out.
Yeah, I mean, fan bases are something I really don't have a lot of knowledge in because we don't really have much of one. We have a very small one of about I think like 80 people, but some of those people in our fan base don't even know we make games because they came in from when I was live streaming or something. Mm-hmm. And and some are not necessarily fans because they're voice actors or any kind of thing like that, because I'm trying to stir up a community in there to where it's not just our games, but it's a place where people can go to, other indies can go to get advice and help and find people to hire for their projects for reasonable prices, and find work being hired for somebody else and stuff like that on top of our community. And we want to kind of blend it together. And I know an example of this, and you actually played one of their games, which is the what was it, I'm probably going to mess up this name, Battle Maiden Olivia or something.
Maiden Magdala, that one.
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a Discord server that is very similar to that and very, very successful. But mm-hmm. you know their game.
Yeah.
But we want to build something similar to that, but with our games, kind of thing. And so I've seen a couple of questions here about Patreon for game dev funding, and that's a tricky one. The having Patreon is on its own, it's a good thing because, like, for the developer, not for the consumer. Because if you think about it, if somebody pledges $5 a month, 3 months, and they've bought a $15 title, whatever dollar value your title was, and they're probably not just going to be paying for that 3 months. They're probably going to be paying for a year plus, which means that you're going to get $60 from that title, more, kind of thing. Although, that's before Patreon's fees, which are probably about probably the 30% standard, and then you have to pay probably another 20% taxes. So, like,
and PayPal too.
You end up having that kind of thing probably too, like you do on Steam. Mm-hmm. So, like, I mean, and that's one thing that kind of bothers me on Patreon is when you allow them to see like the total amount of money. It's like, yeah, this is the total amount of money that you paid Patreon, but the actual creator only got like half of this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's very unassuming kind of thing. I don't like that. So I mean, it's good for the developer to make more money from their game, and it would support it more. But you also have to worry about not being in front of everybody's eyes with that. So you're not on a storefront like Steam. So you don't have those eyes looking at you. So you don't have the amount of sales potential there. Keep in mind that, somebody finding your game on Steam is a completely different issue to that sales potential. But, just as the, total sales potential, like, the only way somebody's going to probably find your Patreon is if you link them straight to it. Where people could find your, in other words, you have to market straight to your Patreon, where when you're on Valve, when you're on Steam, you market them to your Steam page, but also Steam can bring people to your Steam page. And there's all kinds of programs and, internet websites and that feed off of algorithm and feed off their stats and automatically post stuff. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many websites I've seen offering free keys of Chromasia 1 year before Steam even had a key to it. A year before Steam even had keys, they were already offering free keys on these automated websites, and it's like, how did they get that? Did one of our testers go rogue on us? Kind of thing. And it was, so it's really hard kind of thing. It's not, that would be a very long topic that I am not really qualified to discuss, basically. But there's a little bit of info that I can give you off of the top of my head, kind of thing. And I have never done Patreon, but Josh here probably can talk to more experience to it than I could.
Yep. I mean, it's very tough. Like, Patreon seems to work after you have the fan base. Like, you can't really, just like with going on to Steam, you can't rely on Patreon basically doing the work for you.
Yep.
Let me see. I'm going to do a quick time check. We are just about at an hour and 40 in. So, I figure maybe another 20 to 25 minutes. And again, Shark, if you're free in the future, we can always have you on for another chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be delighted to come back.
Okay. So, I do want to at least touch on, at this rate, I don't know if we are going to get to talking about design documents. Although we could kind of feed that into the Project Triad talk. We'll see how far we can go. But for people watching us now, if you do have any questions for Sharky about indie game development, please get them in. Like I said, we're going to try and keep this to maybe another 20 minutes or so, thereabout. But, like we said, I do want to touch on... Oh, there's a question. What are your thoughts on developing for the mobile space? And your perspective...
I said that one earlier. Okay. I missed. So, developing for mobile is a tricky thing. There is... I don't have like the most knowledge when it comes to mobile. I know like a lot of little stuff, but like the whole overall picture I don't know. But I know that when you're doing mobile, let's see here, having your game for free is almost a necessity. I mean, it's not a requirement, but it is so close to a requirement that unless you are very experienced, you should be going free.
Yeah.
And because basically all the apps on there are free. Not technically all of them, but so many of them that you have an insane amount of choices for free. And not very many people are willing to lay down even 99 cents. And that's really sad. Especially seeing how once they get the game, there's monetization systems in there, and then they lay down 20 grand kind of thing. But they wouldn't lay down 99 cents to begin with. And it's odd because it's very tricky. Free demos kind of thing, that kind of thing can work to a point, but you have to be... There's a lot of research that you will have to do on your individual game for that specific platform and all these kinds of specifics. But as a general thing, that can work, but it won't always. And keep in mind that all of the stuff about the crowded platform goes double, if not triple, if not 20 times for mobile. So being found is very hard. You really, have to work on marketing or getting featured, because I know like a lot of these mobile platforms do feature games, and I don't know exactly what the process is to get on that, but I'm sure it's not easy. And I also know that you can also be higher up on the search list than others, and I don't know what goes into that, but that is definitely something you would have to research into yourself, kind of thing. And it's a very big can of worms that we will be possibly going into with Project Triad eventually, since it's going to be a free game.
Mm-hmm.
But that will be an after thing, and that's another thing that gets into there. It is when you're releasing on platforms. If you release on mobile first and then go to PC,
Yep.
everybody's going to have a bad negative opinion of you right off the bat. But if you start on PC and then you go to mobile, everybody's going to have a positive opinion on you. And if you do them both at the same time, you're probably going to get the negative one, but you might get some of the positive too. But I don't actually know the specifics on that. But it's one of those things where if you're going to do multiple platforms, a PC platform and a mobile platform, do the PC first.
Yeah, and the whole idea, and woe be it if you release the mobile at a lower price than the PC version too.
Oh yeah. The thing is if you're doing like a PC one that costs money, like like let's say we did Chromasia, which we were half kind of debating doing a port of that, and I couldn't to mobile. And the only way I could really see of that would be to basically make chapter 1 or like a certain few levels free, and have it at free cost, and then they get to a certain point and then it pops up a thing, if you would like to continue the game, pay $14.99 to get the game. Or and also maybe include an option to where they can pay 99 cents to get the next few levels, kind of thing. And the reason why I say that is, and this is kind of a dirty tactic, and it's one that sadly you pretty much have to adopt when you're doing any free-to-play game. And I don't like it because I don't like dirty tactics, but it's pretty much what you have to do if you're going to be any kind of success. You have to have something that is, you have to have a bottom price in there, a very low price, like a 99-cent price if possible. It doesn't have to be 99 cents, but you need a very low price in there, because the way the human mind and psychology works is, and I really hate doing this, is that the hardest part is getting somebody's mind open to opening their wallet.
Yep.
And having that 99 cents there is the easiest way to get them to get their mind to shift to open their wallet. And they're like, okay, I'm willing to buy something at this point. I'm willing to spend money. And once they're willing to spend money, they're like, oh, I can get this for 99 cents, but I can get this thing that is 20 times better for $15. It's only 15 times the price, but it's 20 times better. I'll go with that, kind of thing. Or I could get this thing for $100 that is 1,000 times better. And they'll pick their own price point after that, but you have to really just, take a crowbar and open up their mind to actually opening up their wallets with that 99-cent thing. And it's really dirty tactic, but there's honestly, as far as I can see, no way around it. And I don't like that. And that's the reason why I kind of wanted to stay away from the free-to-play market, which is one of the things that personally worries me on the Project Triad thing, especially since, a lot of people are going to draw loot box conclusions with it. Since it is a, it's going to have the basically the same model as physical card games do, which basically none of the video game card games have.
Yeah.
Some do. Magic has one very similar to it, but they have a lot of other dirty psychological things besides the 99-cent thing. And I don't like that kind of thing. I really don't.
That's what we spoke when Ramin was on. We talked a lot about those monetization tactics. And what Chris was saying earlier about how it's such like a rewiring in terms of building your game for the mobile space, that I think for a lot of games it's just not really worth it in the long run.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you build the game. If you build the game from the beginning with the possibility in your mind that you may go to mobile, you will build the game in such a way that it would be good for both.
Yeah.
And Chrome Asia was built in that way, even though we never went to mobile, but like there was definitely the possibility in there. We could just scale some of the UI. We had an easy scaling UI. We could do a lot of things, and like with the zoom in, zoom out map and all of this other stuff built into it. Like we also built like all these different controls and the controller support, and made it to where like if you wanted, you could play just completely from the keyboard. You could play completely from the mouse. You could play with a combo between the mouse and the keyboard. You could play. We set it up to where you could play with a smartphone if you wanted to, if we put those controls in there.
Yep.
And it would be not much to put them in there. We would have to do other stuff on top of that, but that would be something fairly easy to do, especially in our engine, which our engine is a custom engine. It's a Chrome Asia engine built from the libgdx framework, but and that's Java based, and Java runs on basically anything, and that's really kind of the really good thing about our engine and whatnot. And and like Mike said, that is a really slippery slope, and it honestly is, and I really don't like it.
Yep.
And I am going to try to keep that to a bare minimum in Project Triad, because I don't want to go down that slippery slope. I want to go as far away from the edge as I possibly can, but I have to be able to see that bottom, because if I can't see that bottom, then the game is going to fail. It's just straight up that. There's nothing I can do about it. It will just straight fail. No matter how much marketing I do, if I cannot see that bottom, it's over. It's a question on how can I see that bottom. Actually, it's how can I see that bottom without going down that slippery slope. And the slippery slope is beneficial to me, because it would make me more money.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that there's a possibility that I can establish a new model, and that would be the customer-friendly model, to where we can see that bottom. We're using the very bare minimum of getting people to want to spend money on the game, because we need money for the game so we can keep on making the games. And leave it at that, and have a very customer-friendly model that customers will love, and they won't spend money out of need because of psychology, pushing them to it, kind of thing. They will spend out of love. They will love the game, and they will spend and potentially make way more money than what it would have doing that other model. But at the same time, is that could also shoot us in the foot and be the thing that not really causes us to fail, but causes us to sell far less copies. But I would rather sell far less copies and survive, preferably, than go down the bad road kind of thing. But there's you have to get to that edge to have a chance at surviving, and that's the sad thing with free to play games, and that's I don't know anywhere around it, and I've gone at this from many different angles. I mean, maybe somebody has a point that I don't know of, but that, from what I can see, that is the sad reality, and there's no way around it. But keeping that to a very minimum, doesn't make it uncustomer friendly, because like keeping that to a very minimum is just getting them to open their wallet. Valve/Steam gets you to open your wallet every time you go buy a game. So, I mean, that's not dirty or anything. Getting you to open your wallet isn't dirty. it would be doing the stuff
to manipulate
stuff that causes that.
Mm-hmm.
And
yep. And the other thing about that, and this goes kind of back to our major topic, is trying to sustain yourself in the market. Because, as we said earlier, when it comes to independent developers or any developers in general, there is that community around it. You do something illegal or you do something nasty or whatever, it's going to stay with you. And we've seen developers kind of get pushed out or kicked out of the industry because of that. The whole, the Slaughtering Grounds being a good example. Phil Fish, just completely getting out of there. And these are issues that, as you said, you could go the cheap and easy route, and we've seen many developers do that. Again, the whole point of, or the whole section we talked about, asset flip and low quality or low time games, are examples of that. But the problem is, if you're trying to sustain yourself, you're trying to make a living, you need to not only think about what you're doing today, but think about what you're doing 2 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever. And most developers don't think like that.
Yeah, you have to. I wouldn't say you have to think about that. You have to not shoot yourself in the foot for that. Rather, kind of thing. And you gotta think about the current, but you have to think about the current in such a way that you do not shoot yourself in the foot for future stuff. And a lot of big AAA developers don't care about the future because they have stockholders to please and such. But other indies may not realize this kind of thing, and the key isn't thinking of the future, is just thinking of how not to shoot yourself in the foot for the future. Think about, if you want to do another game, is this going to shoot you in the foot? And I think that's really a key point. And I think being consumer friendly rather, is really the key, because if you treat your customers well, they're not going to want to leave you.
Yep.
They're not going to want to leave you. They're going to, if you treat your customers, the better you treat your customers, the more they're going to be, shut up and take my money, kind of thing. And I'm hoping that works for Project Triad on a free-to-play game. I don't know. It may not. It can backfire, because it's something new. As far as I know, nobody has really done much of anything of a card game that is free-to-play that is consumer-friendly. I mean, I've seen some on the more consumer-friendly side. The most consumer-friendly one I've seen is the current Magic the Gathering Arena, which I have been playing a lot of, and recently. But they definitely have some anti-consumer stuff in there. They have the other currency, they have the gold that you get for free, and then they have the gems that you pay for, and then you pay for $10, but you can only buy stuff for $8 and $12 and $13. And all these, where they're mismatched prices, so that once you make your first purchase, you have that psychology pointing back to that number. It's I still have unspent money there I can spend, but you have to put more in to get more, and it's where you never break even, and it's eternally grabbing you for that, and that's something we're definitely not going to be doing in Project Triad. But that is the dirty stuff that I don't like from Magic the Gathering, although they have, relatively from the other card games I've seen, they have very good, customer friendly model for the most part, because their card packs are just like their physical card packs, which are not loot boxes, because those actually go through the gambling commission, because they're physical goods. They have to go through there, and they're approved, because they have every pack you buy, exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get one rare, 3 uncommons. I don't know how many commons it is. I think it's 2 uncommons. And then 5 uncommons, and then 1 random card, which it can be a rare, it could be a mythic, it could be a common, or it could be uncommon. It's a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like one card is a loot box kind of thing in there.
Yep.
But that is technically legal, in the Gambling Commission, as long as everything else is defined, and that one thing is defined as a mystery kind of thing.
Yep.
Now, we do intend on doing something similar to that in Project Triad, but what we're going to do is you get. I'm just going to quote numbers that are not right. So bear in mind that these are not right. I'm going to go with big pack. I don't feel like looking up right now. I don't think we have time either.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll go with the assumption of 13 cards, which I think we're doing like 9 or something. But we're going to be doing like 1 rare, 3 uncommons, 5 commons or whatever, and then we're going to have 1 card that is dedicated as a full card. And that card will be a full card 100% of the time, but that card could be any different rarity of foil. And that foil would be the only way to get a extra rare kind of thing. But, we want very solid stuff that would easily pass through the Gambling Commission because, at the current rate, they'll be involved in the game industry before we release Project Triad anyway.
Yeah. And again, it's all about, as you said earlier, with the booster pack example, that it's about giving the player all the information they need to make these decisions. And if you don't do that, again, so many developers have, pretty much tying to everything that we've talked about tonight, many developers have gone the less than legal or ethical route when it comes to designing their games, how they market or promote it. I mean, but for people who watch when we do our Weird Games segment during the live shows, there are plenty of games that would never make it onto any store if they didn't try and, skirt those issues. But if you do that and it gets out, you're done. You really only have one chance to make a good impression. And it's one of the very hard things that, I only we have enough time to get into that tonight, but it's one of the hard things about knowing when to show people your game. When you even go back to what we said earlier about knowing when your game is even done. You can work on a game until the end of time, but it could be you could release a game after 2 years and it could be horrible. You could spend another year, it could be the best game ever. You could spend another year, it could be just as bad. And so much about game development is up in the air because of that it really becomes it becomes a very big challenge to get to that point of, yes, I can not only do this, but I also have people wanting to support me. And as Mike is saying, it is about the journey for pretty much everybody. You don't wake up one day again knowing what your exact game plan is going to be 3 years from now. But you need to have that thought in the back of your mind at all times. Where am I going? What is that end post that I'm trying to reach?
Yeah. I want to address what Chris said here, and also what Chris said earlier. Number one, noticed. And for the second thing is, you said that magic packs are fine because of trading, and you don't. What if you get something you don't want? Mm-hmm. I would really like to have trading in Project Triad, but there's possibly a few good ways to do it. But even if we can nail down those good ways, there is no way that it is escaping tons of bad feedback and controversy over it. And for that point, I think we're going to have to steer clear whether we can do a good system or not. And that's kind of sad because, controversy, steering game development like that. But, I mean, there is potential that we could do something. I couldn't confirm or deny because I don't actually know. I haven't went to design it because it's been off the table from pretty much the beginning because of the controversies. Yeah. And the fact of, what do you get if you get something you don't want? There are other systems that you can put in your game, and we have some of those planned out. One is after you get whatever the max copies is, which I think we're set on 4 copies. is the most you can put in a deck. But after you get like 4 copies of a card, it will give you some kind of credit, which will probably be our main currency, which would be, just whatever you like. Let's just say it's gold. Say we call it gold, right? Mm-hmm. You'll get gold from doing quests, which you can use to buy new card backs. And then if you get more than 4 copies of a card, you can those more than 4 copies go to earning you more gold, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And when we may put something in there that will be like, if you don't want this card, if you don't want it at all, you can possibly trade that in for gold as well. But if we were to do something like that, we would definitely make sure to put a safety in there that will prevent them from doing it accidentally. And we also need to put, but that comes into the question, is even if they do it on purpose, they could do that for all their cards and then try to buy new cards and not get enough to make a deck. And that's something else we have to put some kind of safety in, or something for if we're going to do that kind of thing. And it's not going to be easy kind of thing. And I don't know how we would do it. I mean, it may be an easy thing to program in, but it's not an easy thing to think of how to prevent that. How to prevent the player from doing exactly what they want and screwing themselves over in the process to where they can't play the game. And and then the other aspect to that is, even when we do that, how do we do that without pissing the customer off? So like there's many different layers to that, and it's very, very hard, and we're thinking about it. Mm-hmm.
And I guess as a quick, this could actually be like another hour-long tangent if we're not careful. But did you have a chance to look at Gwent at all, Sharky, and how they did their whole redesign of the game?
I'm familiar with Gwent just slightly by the name, but I don't have any really knowledge on Gwent as a whole, as a game kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, because, I mean, they did, like, this past year, they did just a complete redesign, top to bottom, of all the rules of it, and it didn't seem to go over as well as everybody was hoping for. And, I mean, again, like, we could easily segue into talking more about games as a service and Project Triad, but that's, again, like, we'll be way over time for that. Yeah. But, again, like, it's very hard. Like, going back to what we were saying before about that first impression, like, as you said, like, there's going to be a lot of people who will look at Project Triad and just think, this is, pay to win, screw this game. And it's very hard, not only with your own game, but with the fact that you have to compete with everybody else who may be doing things not the best way.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Like, the whole goal behind Project Triad is not being paid to win. We're setting I'm trying to set the balance. I don't know how successful I will be. Well, talk to me when I finish the game. But I'm trying to set the balance in such a way that a card game I played back in the past that basically nobody knows of is called Dot Hack Enemy. Mm-hmm. And it's based off of a video game and anime kind of thing. And the thing I loved about that game, was that you could build a deck out of mostly commons and a few uncommons and a few rares, and you can win. You can win tournaments. You can win number 2 in Tennessee and number 8 in the world, because that's what I did. Because I was very broke and I had no money, and I bought a starter deck and like 3 or 4 boosters, and with that I was able to make my first deck that won the first tournament undefeated, and then I bought a few more packs, won the next one, and a few more, and and eventually, as new sets came out, I bought 1 box of boosters, and that was it. I just bought the 1 box of boosters, and then I didn't even do any trades. Never traded. Never bought any specialty cards, just bought the box, and then I was done. And I did that for every set, and I ended up going undefeated forever. And like number one in Tennessee / number one in the world, I played against him and I owned him. You know, the only reason why he was able to higher in rank than me is because they had more tournaments in his area, and you get points based on how many tournaments you go to. So while I was getting first place in every tournament, he was getting like third or fourth in like 8 or so tournaments. So I had my one tournament of that, and he had his 8 or so. Number 3 in Tennessee, though, he was a challenge. He was running my deck weakness too, and oh man, that one was that match at the States was that was a tough one. Mm-hmm. But like the way that game was balanced was like so good, and that's what I want to mimic as close as possible with Project Triad. And we have like some stuff in that set up for that, because like right now, defending wise, not attacking wise, but defending wise, you have your stats. You have it could be a 1 through 9, and it could be a red, yellow, or green, and color doesn't matter on defensives. It matters for attacking. Although you can have a card that is already played kind of in defense mode that can swap to attacking, but that's a different story entirely. We're just talking about defending, and for defending, you can have stats 1 through 9, and no matter what card it is, they have the same number of weaknesses. They have 10, because there's going to be yellow in whatever color it is. So whatever stat they have, whether it's a 1 or a 9, there's going to be yellow to beat it, right? And then there's a red for every number underneath that. So if it's a 5, there's 4 reds underneath that. If it's a 1, if there's a 1, there's 0 reds above that. But in that case, there's 8 greens above that, or in the case of the 5, there's 4 greens above that. In any case, there's always 9 stats that can beat every card. Every card is exactly balanced. There's no difference between rares or extra rares or anything. They all can be beat by 9 different cards. Now, attacking, on the other hand, there is definitely a difference there, because a green 6 can only beat 5 numbers, where a green 9 can beat 8, kind of thing. And a yellow whatever can only beat 1. And a red 1 can beat 8, but a red 8 can only beat 1, kind of thing. So like attacking wise, that's where you get the difference in. But with the defending, there's no undefeatable card. Like you can defeat the cards equally, no matter what the rarity is or anything like that. So like that part is 100% balanced, kind of thing already. But there is so much other stuff going into it, and I'm trying to work on a balance that is very fair. I want the meta to be basically the meta deck. I want, and by meta I mean like the kinds of deck that most people run, not specifically a specific strategy, because I don't want a specific strategy. I want everybody to be running different kinds of decks. I don't want anything to be more powered than the other. But I would like those best decks that exist to contain maybe 10 rares, 15 uncommons, and like 45 commons in a 60-card deck. And, of course, we're going to offer deck sizes smaller than that, but that would be in a 60-card deck. We want that kind of spread. I don't want it to be where somebody that buys all the cards is just instantly going to win. I want to have it to where the thing is you buy more cards, you have more chance to win. But I want somebody that has none of the cards to be able to beat somebody who has all the cards, because they are a better player and skill based. The rarity and the extra cards definitely plays into it, because it's a limitation on your strategy that you make. But I don't want you to beat without a strategy because you don't have the cards.
There's a way for you to win that's not tied to how much money you spend, essentially.
Exactly. I want the poorest player to be able to beat the most rich player.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I accomplish that or not, I don't know. But that's my goal. I'm doing my best, kind of thing, and it's not easy. Let me tell you that, because like you said earlier with asymmetrical design, like there is so much that goes into that.
Oh yes,
it is a whole can of worms, and in achieving this kind of balance in an asymmetrical design is arguably one of the hardest things to do in game development. It's definitely, I don't know if it's the hardest. I would probably say no, it's not the hardest, but it's definitely really high up on the list.
Oh yes. Let me see. I think we'll begin to wrap things up here because we have definitely gone past our time. But Mike asked one last question. Do you sell anything that's not a game? Books, dev diaries, stuff like that?
No, I don't. We don't have anything for sale. And, when we lose our LLC after, here in about, I think about 20 days or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, no, I don't think it's 20 days. I think it's 30. I think it's the first of the month after next is when we're losing it. But, the game's going to have to come off of Steam, like 2 weeks before that, because Steam has to have time to process payments and let refund policies expire and whatnot before they give us some money. But, without that, we can't sell anything because of my personal situation, which, I'm going to say this publicly. I am on disability. I've had quite a trying childhood, let's say, and that has caused me to not be able to work a normal job. And because of that, I am stuck on disability, getting paid $700 a month. And trying to live solo on that in the United States is insanely hard, to say the least. And then trying to develop a game on top of that and putting money into the game wherever I can, which is not very many places, it makes it even harder. And the thing is without the LLC, the reason why I bought the LLC was because of the disability, because I'm on SSI disability, because they penalize me for any income I make on my Social Security number. And the only way to have income not come on my Social Security number is by having an LLC and having a specific EIN number, which is basically a Social Security number for a company in there for that, so that the money goes on to that, and then it doesn't hit mine. The only money that hits my Social Security number is money that the company pays me. Now, what would happen would be, if I didn't have the LLC, let's say Steam is going to pay me $500, right? So Social Security is going to look at that and be like, all this money is his. It's not company money.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. It's not, he doesn't have to split this money with anybody else. This is all his money. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 50% of that, take it down to $250, and then we're going to issue an interview with him and say, hey, you were able to work here for this specific time. How about you get off of disability and no longer get money from us? And there's people called debt dealers, and they got that name for a reason, to where no matter what you say, no matter what kind of case you put on there, their goal is strictly, they have a political agenda to get everybody off of disability they can forcefully by automatically denying them no matter what. And you're doing a role to, if you get those kind of people. So by making 1 red cent that is not through the LLC, risk causing me to lose my income that I live on, which would cause me to be homeless, and definitely not going to get any games at that point. And that's a very strict gamble. And even at that, they're going to penalize you to the point where you make no money. And the thing is if Steam ever paid me I think it was $1,500. If they ever paid me $1,500 at one time, which is not hard for a successful game, because we've already talked the numbers and how big they are. You know, to make one to feed one employee at minimum wage, you're going to need to make about probably about $2,000 each pay. But if at any time they paid more than $1,500, I would instantly lose my disability without even getting the interview, and I would be homeless at that point. You know, so there's no the only way around it is having an LLC, and you know, selling anything without the LLC is basically just suicide, essentially. And so it doesn't really work. You know, you have to have the LLC, which the sad thing is the LLC costed me so much money to get on there. You know, it was like almost $2,000, which I don't think I have to tell you, you know, that after my rent being $375 and, you know, utilities being $150, you know, they're after just those two things, they're not even counting internet or any other bill. There's not much left of that that $700, and then you got to somehow save up and get $2,000 to get this LLC. Now, mind you, that the LLC was not just strictly $2,000. It was, I think it was like $500 or $600, and then I had to pay another extra $100 to get the LLC, to get the EIN number, and then I had to form a bank account with that, which the bank account, to not charge you like $50 a month, they require you to deposit at least, I think it's like $700, $800 in there, and then you have to do all this red paperwork, all of this red paperwork, you know, all this red tape and all this other stuff. And in the end, it was like $2,000. But that's not even the complete cost, because I had to pay for a mailbox, a public mailbox, because LLCs require you to have a publicly seen address for the company. And unless you want to list your house and have you know, anybody show up at your house, you have to get a mailbox, and the mailbox costed me, and mind you, I got a really cheap one that is really crap that I would really not recommend. I think that thing cost me like $12 a month every month, and that's, you know, being that I had to do that back when I fell out of the LLC, which happened to be before I could get the bank account, which was before I could put the game, even let the store page be up on Steam, not even put the game for release, just put the game where it's visible on the store page. I had to do that before all that, which means that I've had to have this mailbox open for almost 2 years now. So that has added up to a good $500 or so. So, you know, then you add in like the $100 Steam fee, which is nothing compared to everything else at this point. And then you put the one thing that we paid for the game, for Chrome Asia, which was $150 for a musician, and you get, you know, and then like a few other little things here and there, and now you got a $3,000 price, but only $150 of it went into the game. Oof. And then you put in the fact that we have poor sales, that we've only sold, I think it's like 88 copies, which I think gross is like $900, which means that we'll actually be getting probably about $450, $500, maybe $400. So we spent, you know, $3,000, most of that being on the LLC because of my situation, and, you know, where most developers don't have to put up with that. I did, and now we're getting back, you know, maybe $400, $500, you know, off of $3,000. And then that doesn't even count the 2.5 years that Monkey and I have put into the game, or anything else, or what we put into Project Triad, or anything else. And that also doesn't include like buying a PC here for $2,000, and, you know, buying this software and that software and all of this stuff. And, you know, even though it's basically a $0 budget game, it's still really damn expensive.
Oh yeah.
And we've lost a lot of money, kind of thing. And that's the reason why when we lose our LLC, we have to remove the game from Steam, because if we let the game go on Steam, then then somebody, one person, just one person, all it takes is one person to make a purchase. They make a purchase, $750 or $15, and then $750 ish comes back to me, and then that goes on to my Social Security number, and then Social Security can possibly kick me off because of that $7.50. So nice. It has to be removed, and I don't want to remove it, but that's how it is. But in theory, and I haven't confirmed this, but in theory, when we take it off, it'll just be removed from sale, and everybody who already owns it will still be able to download it, and everything will function, as possible.
Yeah,
I still have to talk to somebody with Valve to confirm that, but
I think that is right, because I have a few games that are no longer being sold on Steam, that because I already have a key to it, I can, as long as the Steam servers stay up, I can download that game and play it indefinitely.
Yeah.
All right.
As for what Mike said about donating the profits, they don't count that for me. It's coming on my Social Security number. It counts for me whatever I do with the money. If I gave all of the money to charity or wherever, they would still come after me and take 100%. Take their 50%, because that's how they work, and it's harsh. It is harsh, and it's something I personally have to deal with. I'm basically everything they teach you, everything I've learned about game development is basically you don't want to do things certain ways, and there's very bad ways to do game development, and all those ways I've had to do because I've had no other choice, and that's like, you don't want to make a game on a $0 budget because it basically ain't going to get finished if that's the case. You don't want to do this without working in the industry first. You don't want to. You need that experience. That experience is very critical and very important for you. But I'm disabled. And nobody's going to hire me even if I wasn't. Because that's life. Kind of thing. Because I tried. Trust me, I tried. I tried that long ago, and never kind of quit. But until recently, but like there's just so many things that are like, as far as I know, Nexus Games is the only company to ever publish a game on a basically $0 budget and with no experience in the industry before. To make a fully published game, not a asset flip or low quality game kind of thing, but a fully published game. As far as I know, we are the only people who have ever done it. We are the unicorn kind of thing. But even making it to that point, which is a tremendous task and on its own, you can still fail, even if you do. Even making it a great game, which our reviews are 100% on it. We have a 100% positive review score, but that isn't saving us.
Yep.
That's just not saving us.
Yeah. Oh, are we still on? Yeah, we're still on. All right, but yeah, I hate to cut things somewhat short, but we did go over our timeline. I do have to get going for tonight, but Sharky, I think. Definitely want to have you back on for another, because I think we do want to spend time focusing on Project Triad. We were talking about probably doing like a live run of it, and I think the next time we should try get that going.
Yeah, absolutely. We can try to do that.
For Mike's question, I've seen removed games of the company's fold. I think it still has a listing if you already own the game. As long as it's on the Steam servers, you can play it. But if that company is not in business or there's no way to no ownership of it, it will get taken off, basically being purchasable. Like if I go type in Clockwork Empires, looks like it's still being sold even though the company is no longer in business. So in that case, I don't know who's actually making money for that one. But like the game I mentioned earlier, who went out to do undervaluing their Kickstarter, that game cannot be purchased at all. Like it is gone. The only way you can have it is if you already bought it or got a key before that time.
All right, and that sounds about what I've heard, and I haven't confirmed that we can do that with Chromasia, but that in theory is what's going to happen. Is it's just going to become unpurchasable. The store page itself may disappear. It probably will. I don't know. It may just be NA for the price or something. I don't know, but something along that lines. And you would still be able to download it and play it and everything else. So even if you uninstall it, you'd be able to re-download it kind of thing. But you would have to do that from your library, not from the store page kind of.
Yeah, definitely. All right, but yeah, like I said, I do need to get going. I think for people watching this live, tonight's game will probably get be pushed back while I go have something to eat and all that. But like I said, Sharky, thank you so much for coming on. I know we didn't get too much into Project Triad, but we can certainly spend another stream talking more about that. And as I said on Discord, definitely best of luck with the development of it.
And thank you very much. I would be glad to come back and everything. And for all you guys that have questions still, I know we didn't address all your questions. I know, I've seen tons of them fly by and whatnot. Feel free to ask me on Discord. I wouldn't say available all the time, but you can message me anytime, whatever my status is, and whenever I got time, I will message you back kind of thing.
Yep.
And kind of thing. And we have our own Discord, if you don't mind me promoting that.
Yeah, sure.
There's a link to it, and you can join our community and, get up on the latest news of Project Triad and whatnot. Yep. And, keep up with all the latest updates, and hopefully we can get more activity there, because not very many people chat there. But there's a lot of people that want to chat there. They just don't have a very big group of people that they can chat from. And when you talk to the same people over and over again, the topics tend to run low. But yeah, I think that's about it for today anyway.
All right, yeah, and again, for people new watching us, we have our own Discord link down below. Yeah, we'll see how things go for tonight, but let's end things here. So, like I said, Sharky, we'll definitely keep in touch again. You're on our Discord channel, so we'll be glad to have you back on. But be sure to check out the Nexus Game Discord that is linked there. I'll include a link to it in the description for people watching this recorded. And if you want to get this podcast ad-free and a little bit early, be sure to check out patreon.com/GWBycer for getting VIP access. But I guess very quickly for you, Sharky, regarding social media, are there any place you'd like to plug before we end the cast?
Just the Discord. We have several other places, but I'm not really active on those. And one comment I would like to say, Mojo, is that he didn't fall asleep.
I think that's for him to get coffee. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. But again, thank you everybody for coming out, whether you are a new or old fan. That's nice. But have a great night, everybody. I'll be back later tonight for our stream. And if you are a developer wanting to come on for a cast, please don't hesitate to get in touch. But check back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where exactly they are in science of games. Until next time, have a great night, everybody.